It's time to get hot and bothered.
Oh, my.
You're tuned into the Talking Heat podcast with Hot Sauce Guide and FGC.
Slug Turk, how you doing?
Doing great. Living the life. Luxurious. I'm alive.
Cold.
Yesterday I thought I was dead.
Ready to go.
Yesterday I thought I was on my deathbed. So today, the fact that I can actually function and look at a computer screen and not want to be not here is good. Didn't want to get graphic.
We are glad that you are here and with us today. You know, as a Browns fan and someone that lives in Kansas City, I don't feel so bad. But as your friend, sorry about the game last night.
Hey, if we shouldn't have been there. So my mindset going into it was I just needed to just embrace and be happy that I got to experience it. You know what I mean? Like internally, I knew the whole time that we were going to get our shits kicked in, but outside, I was telling everyone we were going to the Super Bowl because you know what I mean. Like you just got to embrace every moment. So yes, I'm sad that the Steelers lost, but we made it into the playoffs when we probably shouldn't have, and we lost to arguably probably the top three favorites to get into the Super Bowl. So I'm okay with it.
I like it. All right. Well, guys, I'm super pumped because of our guest today. Today joining us, we have Chef Rick Orlando. How you doing today?
I'm great. How about you? Hey, listen, I'm a Jets fan, so you can't even get me involved with these conversations. It's been so pathetic, so long. Oh my God.
Well, growing up in Cleveland, I know your pain.
Oh yeah. I mean, who sits and wishes for the days of Chad Pennington longingly? I mean, come on, that's really rough, you know. But yeah, football. All right,
yeah,
we'll get over it.
That's a sore subject for all of us, I guess, today.
Yeah. A lot of my friends are Patriots fans. I got to rub it in.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we didn't lose as bad as the Patriots lost to the Bills. We lost bad, but it wasn't at least as bad as the Patriots to the Bills, and that's a dub at the end of the day. But
I'm all in rooting for the Bills right now to go all the way because they're like the redheaded stepchild in New York. No one thinks of Buffalo. Go for it, man. It's a cool city. It's really cold. You know, they have good wings. So, yeah, we'll root for them.
Yeah, I have a lot of fraternity brothers that are from Buffalo, Rochester, because that's where we went to school. Is about 2 hours from there. So, I think I'm Team Bills. I think I'm Team Bills for this year.
Yeah. Why not, right?
And the wings. You're right. Them wings are good.
Well, so we appreciate you joining us today. And so to start off, we kind of want to learn a little bit more about you. Who are you outside of just making some awesome hot sauce?
Who am I? Well, you know, I started out back in the old days playing underground music and cooking restaurants in the late 70s and early 80s. And I was in the right place at the right time. I discovered hot and spicy food when it was like really not on the radar that much. I lived in Boston, grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, moved to Boston. I moved to New York for a while, then moved to Boston basically to be in a band, ended up cooking and being in bands. But there was a lot of really good, spicy, cheap eats, especially in Cambridge and in Allston, like the college ghetto areas in the 80s, because politics being what they were, Cambridge was a refugee city. So tons of Central Americans, Southeast Asian, and Middle Eastern, more Bangladesh residents ended up in Cambridge because they were political asylum, and they all opened restaurants. So suddenly, in these neighborhoods that used to have, you know, little counters that served luncheonettes, suddenly there was a Cambodian, a Vietnamese, Thai. There was really funky variations on Indian, and I was a poor musician, and that food was cheap, man. We used to go to this one Vietnamese place called Cow's Palace. It was CAO, Mrs. Cow, and she had a fish counter, and anything in the fish counter, she would cook it for you for $1 more. So like we'd go in there and it would be mussels back then were like $1.99 a pound. So 3 guys would go in and say, give us 3 pounds of mussels and cook them. And so for like $7, we get this 3 pounds of mussels with lemongrass and chilies and garlic. So we learned the cheap eats. So I got turned on to it. And then I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Chris Schlesinger. You should Google him because he was like one of the groundbreakers in the 80s. He had a book called The Thrill of the Grill, which was kind of a life-changing book for a lot of chefs because he started doing grilled food with funky hot salsas and relishes. And again, this is like way before anybody was doing it on a manger. His restaurant was loud. Excuse me. And he had something called Hell Night. It's once a month on a Wednesday night where he would do Hell Nights where you would sit and pay like a set rate. Like back then, I think it was $35 or $40, and you'd get 5 or 6 courses that got progressively hotter and hotter and hotter. And it was pretty cool. And, they would bring out, I think by the time we got to the Scotch bonnet course, which was like course 3 or 4, after that, they would bring orange creamsicles out to everybody because that was the ultimate like palate cooler because it had citrus and sugar and dairy.
Yeah.
So I was around when all this shit was happening, right? So when I opened my first restaurant in 93, I had jerk chicken on my menu. I had this dish called Scotch bonnet and ginger beer shrimp, where I would just like throw a big fistful of Scotch bonnets and garlic and butter on the shrimp and ginger beer. I had a dish called, Five Islands fish, where we would fry fish, and then we called it Five Islands because I had 5 island hot sauces. I had Matuks, Lottie's, Windmill, whatever, 5 different Caribbean hot sauces, and I put a dash of all 5 hot sauces in the pan with some wine and some butter. And people started like really loving what we did, but a lot of people were getting really freaked out because they would order dishes and get their faces blown out. So this one woman ordered the Scotch bonnet and ginger beer shrimp, and she said, "Oh my God, I ordered the butterscotch shrimp. I couldn't even breathe after I ate it. It was so hot." So, people suggested that I come up with like little chili pepper indicators to see how hot our dishes are. And that's where the Richter scale, which is the corporate name of my company, came up. Because my name is Rick, and I would say, "Fuck you, man. It's a 5 on the Richter scale." We actually got it to the point where we were using Tabasco for a long time, and then sriracha as like a reference point. My waiters would say, "Well, it says 7 on the Richter scale. How hot is that?" And we'd say, "Well, how hot do you think Tabasco is?" And at that point, we would say Tabasco was a 5. Right, so Tabasco was like, and then eventually sriracha was a 5. So that was like a medium hot, had some heat. If you're not a heat person at all, so if you say, "How hot is Tabasco?" And they said, "Oh, Tabasco's too hot for me." We'd say, "Dude, don't order anything with Richter scale numbers on it. Like get the steak or get the pasta." But if they say, "Oh man, I put Tabasco in my orange juice in the morning," I'm like, "Oh, go for an 8 or 9." And then on the menu, it gets described the Richter scale. And the cool thing was it said dishes order 9 or hotter cannot be returned, because sometimes people would come in and say, "Oh, I want a pasta from hell and I want that in 11," and then they would take one bite and say, "I can't eat it." So I said, "No, you ordered 9 or hotter. You're stuck with it. Take it home, rinse it off." So I'm a guy who was cooking globally and learning about chilies for a long time. I used to actually sell chilies to other chefs because I met this guy named Gary Brooks. He's still online. He's the chili guy. He's out of New Mexico. And he was a distributor of dried chilies. And I was buying like 30 and 40 pound boxes of dried chilies, putting them in bags, selling them out of a little retail spot, selling them in my restaurant, obviously using them in my food. I remember one time all the boxes were cut open and retaped and stamped because the state police opened all the boxes thinking we might, because they all came from Mexico, right? So I'm getting these like, I've lived in this tiny little town called Coxsackie, little rednecky town on the Hudson River, and at the time, and I guess the cops said, "Why is this guy getting like all these boxes from Mexico that don't really weigh anything?" But no, it was amazing. I mean, I actually had, before I opened my restaurant, I'd chef for a long time. I was working in New York at a place called Sugar Reef, which was a Caribbean theme restaurant in the late 80s. And we had, the the classic array of hot sauces on the table. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for Matook's hot sauce. Are you guys familiar with Matook's?
Never heard of
It's,
it.
so.
it's you should Google it. It comes in like a ketchup-sized bottle. It's
Oh, it's big.
they have a bunch of different types, but the main one, the Calypso sauce, is like a papaya and Scotch bonnet sauce. It's crazy delicious. We used to, you know, in New York, right? There's those dirty water hot dog carts everywhere, so we would just have a bottle of Matook's in our pocket, get the yellow mustard in Matook's, and have, like, you know, we call it Caribbean dog. But I got turned on to the hot food early, you know. We opened the first restaurant, we were doing it. Before that, I had a little store called New World Home Cooking Company, which is what the original restaurant ended up being called, because we were bringing in the hottest food ingredients from around the world and selling them out of a store, and actually selling the mail order before the internet, which was a real pain in the butt. You had to make a catalog and mail it out to people. But, you know, we did well with it. You know, we sold a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, dried chilies, hot sauces, curry paste, all that stuff. So I've been involved with it forever. And then in 1995, we released Purple Haze the first time around. And it was out for, we were in a smaller restaurant, a little stone 1720s house with about 60 seats, and we produced the sauce. My friend John Vargo, who had another sauce called Mountain Man, and my sauce, we released them at the same time, and we were getting good distribution through like Mohata, Mobetta, and Peppers, and a lot of the kind of bigger national. And then we moved the restaurant to a much bigger space in 98. And within a year, I couldn't keep up with the hot sauce, so I just let it stop. And I promised myself that I will bring it back. I will bring it back. And so that was 98. So in 2018, we finally sold New World Home Cooking. I put on my list, get Purple Haze back out. It took me a year to finally get it together and get it out. But no, it's back. So it had a little rest. I think I've perfected it a little bit more than the original batch. You know, it's a funny sauce because it's a red cabbage based sauce, so it's never the same two batches in a row. It's always a little different, you know, depending on the cabbage. Sometimes it's more purple, sometimes it's more red, sometimes it's more blue. You know, you can't fuck with it. I mean, it just does its thing. So, you know, yeah. But it's doing well.
What made you say, okay, restaurants are great, but I want hot sauce? So what made you say hot sauce is where I need to put my passion and my heart?
Well, the first time around or the second time? Now, you mean currently? Like right now that I'm making hot sauce? Well, I don't have a restaurant anymore. I closed my one in Woodstock, and then I had partners in Albany. Once COVID started, I took a buyout there. So June 2020, I had no more restaurants. I spent 25 years running 2 restaurants. And everybody was saying, but where am I going to get your stuff? You know, 25 years, and we had really good businesses. We had a lot of addicted customers. And, you know, Woodstock is about an hour and 45 minutes north of New York. So we had locals, we had tourists, and then we had all the local people that came up from the city. We had like the guys from the Bad Brains, the guys from the Ramones, the Uma Thurmans, the David Bowies. I mean, there's all these people live around us up here. And everybody was asking me, can you come and do a dinner at my house? I want to get this, I want to get that. And people said, where am I going to get Purple Haze, man? How can I get Purple Haze? I said, don't worry, I got you covered. So that's why I released my 6 seasonings, my jerk, Cajun, adobo, Moroccan, barbecue, and my Mexican coffee rub, because those are all integral to my menu. Those are all part of dishes on my menu. And then we did the Dirty Blonde and the Purple Haze, and now we have the Purple Haze double dose. Just to make my adoring fans stop busting my chops. No, really, honestly, it's something that I've been wanting to do a long time. And you know, when you're running a restaurant, if you're independent, it's hard to also move and market a brand because you know, of products, because it's a completely different world. I mean, designing the products is what I love to do, right? I do the R&D, I do the testing, I do the pH, I get them right, I run them through Cornell. I bring them to my friend Ruben, who owns Vital Eats up in Albany. He secondary tests them, and he supervises the bottling. But that's the only chefing part. The rest of it is, you know, packaging and shipping and logistics, and, well, you know, it's a whole different animal. I'm learning. Time for a new career.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So what was your favorite and least favorite part of owning and operating the restaurant?
Well, I mean, I love the vibe. You know, we had my restaurants are always kind of loud and boisterous. I made all the music mixes, and they were totally eclectic, fun, off the wall. I mean, so many different people in the music industry would say, "Who's doing the mixes here?" It's like, "Oh, I was the chef." Okay, cool. I love the sound. Like my office in one of the restaurants in New Albany was right above the dining room, and it was an old building, so it was just you could hear everything. And my office in Saugerties was literally a little boxed-in room right between the dining room and the kitchen. I love just sitting in there and listening to the thump of the music and the clanking silverware and people laughing and talking. I love cooking. I love coming up with new stuff. But, the numbers got harder and harder to manage. The bigger you get, the harder they get because you get more payroll, more staff, higher expectations. And it just got to the point where, if I were to do another restaurant again, it would either be like totally OPM, other people's money. Just you put up all the money and I'll come in, I'll make it cool. Which is, people have already offered me, so I got to watch what I wish for.
Mm-hmm.
Or it would be something like a little, 12-seat lunch counter where I go in and cook 2 or 3 days a week. And I kind of do that now. I do little pop-ups in places where friends of mine have restaurants, and I'll say, hey, I'll take over your restaurant on a Thursday night and, cook a dinner for 50 people. So I get to do that. But the reason why I'm out really is it was just a long time, man, 25 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a whole career.
It's a whole career. And I still have a lot of energy, and I know you guys are younger than me, but trust me, as long as you don't screw yourself up too bad physically, when you're my age, you're going to want to keep doing stuff. You're not done. I'm not done. I'm ready to rock and roll. I just did a recording with a guy, put a song out over during COVID. I mean, we're having fun. So yeah, getting out of the restaurant freed me up to do a lot of stuff that has been on my plate. I miss it, but I'm over it.
So, Chef, I think that I don't know if it's on the docket already for the other two guys for their questions, but I think this episode is going to be my father-in-law's favorite episode because not only of the branding of the Purple Haze and then living so close to Woodstock, but he was a 13-year-old whose older brother took him to Woodstock and got to experience it.
Oh, shit.
So he was 13 years old. He got to go. He sat down and never left until his brother physically picked him up and took him out of there.
Wow.
And they actually missed Jimi Hendrix's performance because they needed to leave. And it's like his biggest thing in the world. So how did the music and how did Woodstock and that kind of being so close to that world, how did that kind of impact your career, yourself as a chef, as a person?
It's a good question. I told you, I grew up in New Haven. I worked in New York. I lived in Boston. I got married there. My wife is from New York. We ended up back in New York. And then we came upstate in the late 80s when I had started having kids. My daughter was born in 87 and my son was 87 and 88. And then my other one was 93. So the first 2 kids. And we were down in the city and we had the kids and it was a hustle. I was working nights. My wife was working days. We never saw each other. And my wife's older sister lives upstate in Coxsackie in that other town. And she said, you guys should just come up and check out Albany because Albany's a small city. I like small cities. I grew up in New Haven. I think those 80,000 to 200,000 size cities are really good functioning cities to have a business in, to find food, to find music, to find art, to find whatever you need. So we moved up and we moved to Albany. And we were in Albany for about a year, but we kept wanting to be in the country. So we moved to Coxsackie, 91. And, I'm kind of a rock and roll, little freaky dude, I mean, I'm not that freaky, but I'm a little freaky. At the time I had a long ponytail and, I was in a real conservative town. I mean, Coxsackie could be in the middle America town. It's changed, obviously, in the last 10 or 15 years, but it was pretty conservative farm town. And everybody knew me. And the cops pulled me over a lot because they knew that I had weed, probably. I had an old Volvo wagon. But you know, I liked the town a lot, actually. But then we discovered Woodstock. And back then, I mean, the Hudson Valley has changed so much since like the millennia, right? But back then, before 2000, before this mass like hipster migration upstate, where all along the Hudson are these cool little towns, really cool infrastructure, old brick warehouses and, you know, barns, and they've all become like funky little mecca towns now, right? Hudson and Saugerties and Beacon, they're like really cool. But back then they were not. They were dumps. They were empty. They were real Rust Belt, real empty, and there was no energy in them. But Woodstock, we went to Woodstock, and Woodstock was packed with tourists and musicians, and had, at the time, there were 3 live music clubs, and Woodstock's only 6,000 people. It's a tiny town, right? It's a little mountain town as you're heading into the Catskills. But we looked at each other, my wife and I, and said, no, this is what I want. This is like, I've got deer and bears and country, and I have the guys from the Bad Brains as my neighbors. I mean, I feel like I'm still in New York. So that was a big transition. And that's what made Woodstock appeal to me, is that it's almost like a suburb of the Village in New York, but in total country, you know. I mean, so it hit the spot. It was exact. And so I raised 3 kids here. They're all killing it. One of them is still here. My son plays in a hardcore death metal band. He lives in Kingston, and it was great. It was a great experience, and I got to meet so many people that when I was in music, I didn't live up here. If I was in music and knew the people I met up here, I probably never would end up chefing, because I met everybody, because they all come up. And there's like 5 or 6 restaurants worth eating in. So we got to meet everybody, which was really awesome, you know. Joey Ramone used to come in the restaurant, and I had met him in New York when I was younger, and we had opened for them a couple times. So first time he came in, I introduced myself, and he was sick. I didn't realize it. He had some kind of cancer, and he spent the last 2 or 3 years of his life living outside of Woodstock. And he came to my restaurant all the time, and he would come in the kitchen and say, "Ricky Rondo." That was my punk rock stage name, was Ricky Rondo. Okay. Make me clam sauce, you know. And it was just crazy, you know. I mean, it says it on the bottle, but the name Purple Haze wasn't my idea. It was there was a bunch of guys who used to come in the restaurant that were in the recording industry, and this one guy was a Matt Henderson. He was a writer for Guitar Player magazine, so he was always coming up in our area and writing about guitars and guitar players. And he'd eat in my restaurant every night, and he'd come in early, like 5 o'clock. And I used to make this Scotch bonnet and ginger beer shrimp, and he would say, "Just dose me." So I would, you know, we would just take either habanero or Scotch bonnet, put them in the food processor with some sea salt, and just have this pulp sitting around. So I would just throw 2 or 3 spoonfuls in there, you know, and he'd come in and, "Dude, I'm tripping. Wow, the endorphins." And one day he came in, started doing the air guitaring Purple Haze, because he was so high from the food. Like, wah, 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 dude, I'm tripping. And so at that point, one of my cooks was, this guy, you know, I had that kind of restaurant. Come in the kitchen and air guitar for me, right? This guy, Paul Rodriguez, who worked for me, said, "Man, we got to figure out how to make this stuff purple and call it Purple Haze." So we messed around. I messed around with blueberries, sucked. Beets, sucked. Blackberries, sucked. But I was doing research at that time on the cultures of the world that eat hot food and what's in their diet, so that they don't have like problems with eating hot food. So many people say, "Oh, it makes my stomach upset," or "I get the shits," or whatever. And I found the key was cellulose. Cellulose is a common thread, right? You're talking beans, fruits, cabbages, carrots, root vegetables, things with heavy cellulose were the key that was in all the cuisines where people ate hot food. It was a big part of their diet. So we tried red cabbage, and I love kimchi. So I said, well, it's going to be, you know, a little ferment thing. And that's how Purple Haze came about, because Matt Henderson came in, air guitaring Purple Haze, and dared us.
Crazy.
And back then in 96 or 95, whatever, we had to write a letter to the Hendrix estate. to get the right to use it. And then our lawyer found out we didn't need to do that because it's a different category. So I actually own the trademark on Purple Haze hot sauce because I paid for it.
Oh, wow.
So it's a trademark product. Because like this Purple Haze beer, there's another Purple Haze hot sauce out of Florida. I'm not going to bug them until my sauce gets big enough that I have to bug them. But right now, coexist. I'm totally cool, you know.
Yeah.
I bought a bottle. It's a blueberry sauce. It's okay. It's standard. You know, it's a fruit-based sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. But it's not a mind blower or anything, so I'm not threatened by it, thank God.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just put out that double dose. You guys tried the double dose, right?
I'm gonna try it
one of
today,
us
right
is.
here. I got it
Good.
right here in my hand.
Great.
We'll be trying that a little bit later. I was the lucky one that got the double dose.
It's good, you know, it is good. And the reason why we did that was because when we made the Purple Haze, we made it in small batches, right? Restaurant batches, maybe a gallon or two at a pop. And I was getting peppers locally in season from different farmers. And in the winter, I get them from, you know, distributors, and they come out of the Caribbean or Florida or Belize. And they were never the same twice. But I wasn't physically there to make every batch. So I had a recipe, and the recipe called for whatever the ratio was. Say it was 7 ounces of habanero pulp, you know, per batch. So this one guy, I had two Latino guys did most of my prep. Raul, this guy Juan, they would never taste it. So
What?
I would come in and I would say, hey man, how's the Purple Haze? I don't eat it. I don't eat it. I don't eat it. They would not touch it, man. They would eat anything hot. Nothing. They were from El Salvador.
Wow.
Delicious but bland food, right? So I would come in and taste the haze and say, you know what, we need to add a little more, or wow, that batch of peppers is really hot. So a few people, when they bought the original Purple Haze, said, it's good, but I used to get it at the restaurant, and sometimes it was making me like really hot. So I said, we'll make a second batch. We'll make a second level of it. So that was, I hooked up with Ed Curry from Puckerbutt, and we actually buy the peppers right from him direct to get that sauce, to get that nice pop. But it's delicious, you know. Yeah, you can imagine these guys, man. They wanted nothing to do with hot food, but they prepped a lot of my food, so I had written recipes for them. And you know, sometimes they put the Purple Haze in a pot, and you're supposed to cook it at a medium heat for 30 minutes, then run it through the food processor. I'd walk in and the thing would be boiling like really fast and reducing. That batch is going to be hot, you know. So it was delicious, but it was never the same twice, you know. So now we've gone for, I mean, obviously the recipes for the bottle stuff are super standardized right down to the gram. But even then, you know, the peppers and the cabbage are a little different every time, you know, which is cool, isn't it? Isn't that the way it should be?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really, it should.
I mean, there are some sauces. You buy a bottle of Melinda's, it's going to taste the same every year, every time, no matter what. I don't know how they even do it, man. I don't have no idea how they do that. They must have, like, you know, some kind of meter that they use, because, I mean, I find the peppers are different every time, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get from Ed, I get mash. I get a 50-pound bucket of Carolina Reaper mash, which is pretty scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could drop something in there and you'll never know. Just like melt and
Just
disappear.
dissolve.
Yeah, but so that's you know, that's our fun thing, is making sure that, you know, people get the Purple Haze. Someone called me and said, yeah, I got a new bottle of Purple Haze. It's a different purple. I'm like, you know, winter cabbage versus summer cabbage. I mean, cabbage. Yeah, it's always different, you know. So what are you gonna do? How do you feel about that?
With no bottle being the same.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well, no batch, cool. You know, and you know, with all the supply chain issues, which are hysterical, is I don't think we've had a batch with the same lid, because every time we order, I mean, we order 20,000 lids at a time, because my friend Ruben produces a few other sauces, and for the 5-ounce woozies and the bottles, and I think the first time we got black metal. Second time they were out of black, so we got silver metal. Third time they were out of silver, so we got gold metal. Fourth time they were out of all metal, so we got black plastic. And you just got to roll with it, man. The supply chain issues are really a challenge right now.
I'm a winner of the black metal. The black metal.
Oh, you got the black metal one, right?
Black
I got the black metal.
Mine,
Okay.
black.
And what sauce is that? Is that you have the regular haze?
Double
you have
dose.
double dose?
Yeah,
Okay.
those guys got the regular. I got the double, right?
No.
I
No,
have
I
the
got. I'm the
double.
only one who got the
Oh,
regular.
okay.
So I have your sauces, and we got the others to send to these guys. We had one regular and one double dose, and there was an argument over who would have the regular and who would have the double dose. So I blindly threw them in a box and stirred it up,
And Karma bitch
wrote
slapped
names
Turk
on
in the
it,
face
and
with it.
mailed it off. And Turk won the double dose lottery.
There's this misconception that I'm like a little bitch when it comes to heat. Yet I've eaten a Carolina Reaper raw. I've done all these different things. Like I might react and be a little bit more dramatic than my
You are.
conspirators here with me, but they always just give me shit about it. Yet whenever no one really gives Slug any crap when he ate a raw jalapeno and cried. You know what I mean?
Listen,
Like
Chef Rick just said every pepper is different. And
That's
sometimes
right.
I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened.
I
I've
know,
eaten all
I've-
those hot sauces with you, but this jalapeno bitch slapped me.
No, I've had a
The
couple.
hottest thing. It went right to my ears, right to my nose. It hurt worse. I took the biggest chunk out of it, and that was the biggest regret of my life. But I'm excited for all the other sauces. I said I'll take the hot one. I said, Turk can't do it. Give it to me. He starts insulting me. I jumped on the grenade.
Well,
I jumped on the grenade. He starts insulting me.
If it means
So Karma said,
anything,
"Fuck
though,
you."
I mean, I work really, really hard to make my sauces to be really delicious and not just
I
fire.
need that.
Because it's
I need
easy.
the delicious, yeah.
I'm not slagging anybody. People make great stuff, but it's really easier to do a 35% Carolina Reaper with salt and vinegar. There's not a lot of science to that. You know it's going to be hot, right?
Mhm.
It's really easy to put oleo resin extract. Like, I don't think they do it anymore, but I know
Capsaicin
Blair's Death Sauce and all that stuff. They put all the capsaicin oil. That's cool. I mean, it's cool. That's cool marketing. It's smart. It's like money making. But to me, I'm into the craft. And to me, the craft is creating flavor with enough heat that you want to keep adding it. And then by the time you're done eating, you're like, wow, I'm really high. I laugh because people go through bottles of my sauce really fast. They say, man, I bought a Dirty Blonde and I used it in 5 days, because you just want to keep doing it. And that's the whole idea. Yeah. It's like creating that umami. I work hard to try to create a balance of the tangy, the savory, this little bit of sweet, but not too sweet. Well, Dirty Blonde is kind of sweet on purpose, but so that I just want to hook you, man. I'm like a drug dealer. I want to addict you and reel you in.
I'm glad you
keep
said something.
Keep you.
Yeah, you talked about
could-
addiction, getting your customers addicted, Woodstock. I'm like, this motherfucker's like a drug dealer. And so I'm glad you threw the parallels and I didn't have to.
Hey, man. Hey, if McDonald's could do it, I can do
Exactly.
it,
Why
Hell
not?
yeah.
Why not?
right?
I can eat some chicken and waffles with some Dirty Blonde sauce every day.
Right? That's great. That's a
I
good
gotta
one.
try this Dirty Blonde. It sounds good.
You ever try it on pierogies or ravioli?
Mhm.
Did you see that video?
Yeah.
So you basically
I did
just cook. You put your pierogi or ravioli, or dumplings in boiling water, and in a pan next to it, you get some butter, getting nice and golden brown. Take them out of the boiling water when they're tender. Put them in that butter, brown them up, and then hit them with a big splash of Dirty Blonde and get them all sticky. That's really good.
All right,
That was,
we just got pierogies, just defrosting. We're
There
gonna,
you go.
unfortunately, living on the West Coast, not a huge Polish population over here
Right.
that I've found yet. So we have to get our pierogies in like Costco and stuff like that. But I've got some pierogies, and I'm gonna do that. I will do
Yeah.
that 100%.
Hey, listen, you're on the West Coast. You can get some good dumplings. It works with dumplings too. My son
It's
gets
true.
dumplings.
I do get some
He
killer
gets
dumplings.
takeout dumplings from the Chinese restaurant, steamed, and then takes them home and does them with Dirty Blonde sauce anyway. So.
Mm.
But you cook it together so it all binds
Done.
and sticks and
Yeah,
gluey and I love that.
Mm.
I like that. That sounds good.
Yeah. Stay enthusiastic, brothers. That's the key.
Yes.
Don't get jaded.
So I've seen the episodes. I don't know if Slug and Turk have. I was interested in your experience with the Chopped and Beat Bobby Flay.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
Well, they were intense. I mean, they were real. They don't mess around. That stuff's real. The Chopped. I had done a lot of like local television, and I'd done the Today Show in New York a lot of times because I had a good connection there. and those are fun, but they're not like competition cooking. So when I got invited to do Chopped, I said, let's do it. Man, it was still like one of the most intense experiences of my life. It was good. And I was on 3 times. And it's brilliant because they invented a format that everyone has imitated, not just in food, but in so many other things. This format of, there's no writers. You know, they basically, when you show up, so there's 4 of us on the screen. So the 4 of us show up at 6 a.m. We get picked up wherever we're staying, brought to this studio in Queens, and they just put you in a room for like an hour with coffee, donuts. But there's people sitting around, like writing down what you do, and there's cameras on you. And then they take you and show you the kitchen and show you the pantry for like 3 minutes, and then put you back in the room. And then you sit there and you're just sitting and no one talks to you. And then about 9 o'clock, they say, okay, come on out for the first round. And you go out and you just do it. And then you go back in the room. But there are people following you and writing down what you do the whole day. So at the end of the day, if you win or even if you get chopped, you have to sit in a room. This is a really cool thing with a blue screen behind you. And this person has documented everything you did all day. And they put it up on a little teleprompter and say, okay, I want you to read this back, but in the first person present, like you're doing it now. So it'll say, Rick dropped his knife on the floor. You go, oh, shit, I dropped my knife on the floor. What am I going to do now? Oh. So you're actually writing the show. And I don't know if you notice when you watch them, but the contestants are kind of narrating what they're doing while they're doing it. That's because they recorded it after. So it's a brilliant format, man. But it's serious cooking. And I actually did jerk. I felt like they threw me a softball because the entree round of my first appearance, I got quail, whole coconuts, a bunch of kale, and a bag of Raisinets. Now, my jerk chicken came with braised either callaloo or kale, but always came with greens. It was made with coconut rice, which you use coconut water to cook it in, and a chicken. And then the Raisinets were easy because I just cooked them in with some rum into my jerk and called it rum raisin jerk quail. And one of the guys said it was the best, Mark Murphy, so it was the best thing he's ever eaten on the show. But I thought that was like, I said, man, they set me up. I mean, they basically gave me like, I mean, yeah, I had to break the coconut and all this stuff, but they gave me all the parts from like, you know, a dish. And people laughed because Alex going to show, he's like, what is Rick doing with all those spices? But like, I know exactly what goes in my jerk. I know I needed allspice and thyme and nutmeg and cinnamon and garlic powder, onion powder. Excuse me. So, you know, it was fun. It was really great. Bobby Flay was pretty much just as intense, except that you knew what you're going to cook. And he's good, man. He wins a lot. He's a really good cook. But I was pretty psyched to win that. People love to hate Bobby Flay. So anywhere I go, I mean, I've been out, you know, in the California desert. I've been in Chicago. I've been in Guatemala. I've been in England, where people say, "Hey, you beat Bobby Flay." They love that. They're like, "Yeah," you know, they get psyched because I have to admit that he's brilliant for creating a show where he's like the anti-hero, where you're rooting against him, and he loves it. He makes more money off that show than anywhere else. So it's a popular show because you're there to. It's like Tony Soprano. You know he sucks, but you know he's probably going to win in the end, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I need to try those potato pancakes at some time. Those
yeah, the latkes, they're good.
Yep.
Yeah, that was funny. The reason why I ended up making those because they told me I was going to be doing a holiday episode. So I was sitting with this kid who's a producer. You know, television now is weird. The first level, quote unquote, producers you meet are usually like right out of college. They're like 21, 22 years old. And I'm sitting there with this kid and he's like, so what do you make for your holidays? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm Italian. My stepfather's Puerto Rican. I grew up in New Haven. I make salt cod. I make fish stew. I make this. And he's like shaking his head. And I said, you know, I'm in Woodstock, so I've been making the potato latkes for the Woodstock Jewish congregation for, 15 years. And he said, are you Jewish? I'm like, no, but I make the best latkes in the Hudson Valley. And he goes, you make latkes? And his heart started pouring out of his head. My grandmother makes latkes. I'm like, okay, so I'm making latkes. That's good. So yeah, they were a winner. They were a winner. You know, just like really great little potato fritter. You know, you can't go wrong.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Every cooking show I watch now, I'll be waiting and just kind of trying to dissect it to see if I can pick up on those filming tips, like how they're putting them in front of a green screen and reading back what they did. I love behind the scenes stuff. I love that BTS stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They do something called OTFs on the fly, which means you can be like coming back from the bathroom, you can be just waiting for your turn to go up, or you can be just finished cooking, and someone will just say, Rick Orlando, right now against the wall, and they put a light and a camera on you and start asking you like a bunch of quick questions, and they use that in the dialogue also. They're always trying to get you to do something off the hook, right? They're trying to get you to and
entertainment.
Right. And I happen to be a nice guy, so they said, well, we'll play the nice guy angle with you, Rick. I said, good. Because I felt
Thank you.
When I competed, I was like 45 years old. I had been chefing. I've done everything, almost everything a chef can do in their life, man. I've gotten awards and all this, you know, all the good stuff. And a lot of the people I was competing with were like my cooks. I almost was treating them like they were my staff, you know? And one of the guys who was my first time on Chop that I finished, we went to the end and I ended up beating him. He said later, he goes, dude, you were treating me like your sous chef. I said, I'm sorry. I just, by instinct, you know, it's the way I am.
Yeah.
But it had to do with just, you know, I think age and also personality type, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm just used to being the boss in the kitchen. That's it, man. Get the fuck out of my way. I'm the boss.
So
Can't break that habit.
So in speaking about being the boss, what's your creative process like in the kitchen when it comes to workshopping your spices, your sauces, or even like when you're preparing meals and stuff? Like, what's the creative process for that?
That's interesting because they're all it varies a lot. It's evolved a lot, I think. My creative process for a really long time was going out into like mom and pop restaurants that serve ethnic food. And I lived in Queens after I left Boston, but also in Boston. So go to like, say, an Afghani restaurant and go with another person, maybe get a little buzz on, bring a yellow pad and order like 10 things. And the owners get all freaked out when you order 10 things. They think you might be a food critic. I remember one time we did this in a Chinese place, a dim sum place, and they brought out a bottle of Johnny Walker Black and just put it on the table and winked at me as if they thought I was like a food writer, maybe. They're trying to bribe a good review. But we used to literally, my buddy Steve and I would do it. We'd go and eat stuff and write down like what we thought it was. And back then there was no internet, or it was early. So you'd literally go to the library and like pull out books like on Afghani. I was using Afghani as an example, how they make their bread or how they marinate their meat. And then after a while, you begin to understand it. You know, I understand basically what ingredients come from what area. So the creative process for me now is more about how to take that flavor and turn it into something that you want to pay $28 for, how to make it look right, not be too small, not be too precious. Do I look precious? I'm not precious, you know. And a lot of chefs are really precious. And I actually challenge them on it. I had a couple of guys who worked for me and they tattooed fingers, badass, and they make these dishes of like little tiny food with little tiny drops of sauce. And I'm like, that is not you, Max. Max, you are like like this pit bull, and you're making this little like, you know, miniature poodle shih tzu, little mixed doggy thing here. I said, you got to really kill it, you know? So my creative process still is about tasting, understanding the taste, and then turning it into something beautiful, not beautiful, something alluring, something sexy, something that makes you say, oh man, I want to eat that, you know? When it comes to the bottled products, I have a lot of recipes ready to go. I don't know how many is too many. I mean, I'm small, so I mean, having 20 SKUs might not be the best thing for me. But I have a lot of stuff I'm trying to release. I'm trying to set up some more partnerships. I have the one with 9 Pin Cider. I have 2 barbecue sauces with them. And that was a good creative process because I reached out to them when I had the restaurant and said, hey, I'm messing around with some of your ciders because we had them on the bar. someday I'd like to do something in a bottle. And then once I started bottling, I made 6 prototypes for them. And they picked the blonde one, the yellow one, and the dark ginger one. But that was fun because if someone gives me their product and I get to kind of experiment with what it can do. I'm trying to get something together with a company called Death Wish Coffee. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're kind of popular coffee companies. So I'm trying to put together a good coffee base. I haven't had. Well, you probably know better than me. Is there a really good coffee based hot sauce? Because most of the ones I've gotten, I can't really taste the coffee.
Really good one. Not off the top of my head.
Right, that's what I'm hoping.
There's and I apologize if I'm not thinking of one, but I've had a couple, but no, I think that's definitely a space that you can fill a void in.
Yeah, because I bought one recently, and I didn't really taste the coffee at all. And then when I read the label, it's called a coffee hot sauce, but they basically just infuse coffee beans into their vinegar. So you're not going to really get like that nuttiness of the coffee. You get a little bitterness, but so anyway, I'm working on a coffee sauce. But those are fun because those are, again, I was joking before, but my life revolves around these yellow pads. Joke with my wife, they've got to be the yellow ones. I don't want a white pad. And
the yellow has the best paper.
There's something about it, man. I don't know. I just start, and I have them going back years because you don't tear the pages off. But I'll bring a yellow pad into the kitchen and start out with the base recipe, and then get my scale out and do everything real. Sometimes I do stuff just loosey goosey and jam it, but then I get the scale out and the measuring spoons because I know again, having 2 restaurants that were 50 miles apart, you got to standardize your product, right? You came into my restaurant in Woodstock and had my let's just say my Cuban pot roast, my ropa vieja. And then you went into the one in Albany 2 months later and you got it. I wanted it to be the same experience. So standardizing is a part of my creative process, believe it or not. It's like getting it, fine-tuning it, and then cutting the edges off, getting it where you want it, and then, then getting it solid and then scaling it. Because scaling it changes a lot. When I make a gallon of Purple Haze, it's very different than making 160 gallons of Purple Haze. Yeah, everything acts differently when it gets in bigger volume. So, we made the very first batch. We kept adding more cabbage and adding more cabbage and adding more cabbage because what seemed like what worked in a small pot on your stove doesn't work on a kettle that comes up to your chin. So, I listen to music, and sometimes most of the time I like to do it in a quiet, not so much quiet, but alone. I don't like a lot of input in the initial stages. After you get the prototype, then I go for input. But in the beginning, it's like, I find it hard to have too many people because you don't have the same vision, right? So like say the 3 of us were sitting trying to make a sauce and you're thinking sour and you're thinking sweet and I'm thinking tangy. We're not going to get a good prototype to start with. But if I came to you with the sauce and say, what do you think of this sauce? You might say, you know what, it might need a little more of this, and then you get feedback and you build it from there.
Workshop it from there.
Yeah.
So speaking of Purple Haze, what do you think, Hot Sauce Guide? Is it time?
It is. I'm going to correct myself, though. I'm going to walk back my comment real quick. There is a cold brew. It's called Cold Brew Chaos by High Desert Hot Sauce Company. It's part of their Black Label series, though, so it's extra hot. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10 in heat, so it's excessively hot for most. But it was
what chili is it? What chili is it?
Oh God, chocolate butla, 7-pot dogla, scorpion pepper. It's just a whole mash.
It's all the hot stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those chocolate ones are hot.
Yes. Nothing fun about a chocolate pepper. But yeah, it was really good. So
cool.
I'll
check it out.
That statement, but yeah, but it was really hot. So there's probably room for, of course, more than one coffee hot sauce, but something more mild as well.
Well, I was thinking of something on the hot side, but again, like Purple Haze doing two levels. I was thinking about doing with something smoky, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So I think it's time that we dive in, right?
Yeah. So how do you guys taste it? Just straight up, or on a chip, or in a spoon?
We go spoon. So
I-
so Hot Sauce, every review he's done, I've always ever seen him do it with a spoon. He came to visit me a couple months ago when we actually filmed our first episode of this. And I was like, I got to do what you got to do. You're a fucking champ. I'm a little baby when it comes to this stuff. And so he pulls out this big ass spoon. I was like, I'm gonna go little spoon, but I'll still spoon with you. Like I'll still do the spoon, but I'm not gonna do your. Sometimes I've seen him do a review, and it makes sense. You're reviewing the product, and he's had like 3/4 of the bottle, and that makes sense. But I'm not capable of handling.
Do you keep antidotes around, like sour cream or vanilla ice cream or anything like that? You just go for it, right?
Just go for it. The time that I ate a Carolina Reaper raw, I had some ice cream and some chocolate milk there just because I was so terrified. But otherwise, we kind of just do it. We just do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm there.
All right, going spoon for you. Okay. You good? Ready?
I'm good.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Cheers. That's very good. That is very, very good.
It's hot enough. It's not going to kill you.
I'm always so surprised at the amount of flavors people can put in the sauces. I read the label every time, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to taste that. I'm not going to be. That's just going to be overpowered by the other thing. But like, I taste everything that's on here. It's so damn good, Chef. This is fantastic.
Thank you, brother. I love it. I mean, I love it on. I had it the
Now
other
I can
night
see
just
why
with rice and
people are
beans. You know.
And now I can see why people can go through a bottle in just a couple days. This is
It's
fantastic.
delicious. Yeah. I love the sweetness of the pineapple juice right away.
Yeah.
I think pineapple juice is a killer ingredient for hot sauces because it's acidic and sweet, and it really hits you the right way. It's not too sugary, even though it is. It doesn't come off as sugary. You went back for more, Turk. Went back for more. Good man.
I think with all of your sauces, there's so many uses to it. It's really wonderful.
So they all started out as kitchen sauces. They were used in dishes, not as bottled. I mean, Purple Haze we bottled, but they were definitely like on the line. Like we did dirty blonde pork chops, and we would just marinate and grill these pork chops, and then put about 2 ounces of dirty blonde on them and bake them in the oven until it was all sticky and bubbling. So these were things that we used in the kitchen that I then backed out and turned them into condiments, like adding more acid and turning them into hot sauces. They were basically kitchen sauces for me for a long time.
Yeah,
What would you?
Oh,
no, go ahead. Go ahead, hot sauce.
you had sent me that video of I think the origin of the Purple Haze.
Oh, the old one, yeah.
Yeah, that was really neat.
That was funny. That guy who made that video put all those really popular 80s tunes on there and then tried to sell it. And they're like, do you have the rights to that music? He's like, oh, no. It's Wang Chung and all this stuff. So
what would you pair this with? What would you put this on? Like if you, if someone was listening, they wanted to buy this and they wanted to make a meal with like this as like a focus, or like, wanted to do what would you recommend that they target?
Well, on the menu we had Purple Haze shrimp for years. It was one of my signature appetizers, and we would literally get these nice Louisiana shrimp, so they're nice and briny. Take a pan with some butter, put a big knob of butter in there. When it foams up, put the shrimp and leave them on one side so they get nice and caramelized. Turn them over, hit them with a big douse of Purple Haze and a tiny splash of water just to make it like emulsify with the butter. And then we would just serve pineapple salsa over it as an app. You got 4 shrimp sitting in a pool of purple with pineapple salsa and a hunk of French bread. And people would like, because that Purple Haze, because of the pineapple and the ginger, when you add butter to it, it just comes to life. I love it on seriously, on rice and beans, any type of beans or chili, anything that's rich and like that. but it's also great on. It really works with cheese. Excuse me, I got something in my throat earlier. It works with cheese, but like creamy cheeses. So like I love it with like omelets. It's awesome, awesome like a goat cheese omelet. We also use it in a restaurant on eggs Benedict. We would just make eggs Benedict and use an espresso spoon and put a little purple like eyeball dot on top of each egg because it works great with fatty, rich flavors. Really good.
Because something I've liked to do after every episode that we've done is I've gotten the creators' input, and then I've tried to make a meal. We've done chilies, done sandwiches, different things like that. So that'll so you'll have to look. You'll get a message in the next couple of days or the next week or so with my creation. We'll see. We'll see. What I can do. That was absolutely fantastic.
Really great with scrambled eggs. You'll love it with omelets, and eggs like that are just killer.
I haven't done eggs yet. I'll have to try it with the eggs.
Yeah, well, that makes sense to me. I was a big fan of the sweetness of Los Calientes and eggs, and like making like a breakfast taco. That kind of thing. So I could see that both my fiance and I really dig in that. I don't know. The heat might take her out though.
Get an original. The original is down like a couple notches.
I'm gonna have to order. I already got your store up right here, and I'll be we'll be making some purchases after the episode for sure.
Yeah, we're starting to get some distribution out in the Midwest and places like that too. So I'm trying to find a good hot sauce distributor for different areas. We're suddenly popping up in stores in like Alabama and Arkansas, but we're trying to this year is the year to creep it out nationally because I've been just taking care of my Northeast region and now down through the Mid-Atlantic. But hopefully we'll have it around you. Is there any good stores near you that sell stuff?
Yeah, I took Hot Sauce Guide there. What was it? It's got a naughty name.
Double D's Meat Market. Yeah,
Double D's Meat Market, and they got like.
Where are you? Are you in Erie, Pennsylvania? You said.
Oh no, that Slugless is in Erie, PA. I'm in Seattle, outside. Of Seattle.
You're West Coast, right?
Yeah.
So you're not a car ride.
No. But
Erie, PA is manageable for me. It's like 3.5, 4 hours. But I actually go out to Watertown to drop off sauces for distribution occasionally. When I'm out there, I'm like, it's only, but not this time of year. It's nasty up there.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, they just got 2 feet of snow. I don't want nothing to do with that. Which is reason for those that are probably listening to the pod why Slug has disappeared and why I have a under construction photo over where he used to be on the screen when you're watching this on YouTube. But he's been losing his internet all day to the weather, so that's why.
Oh wow!
That's why Slugless has disappeared. For those that watch this a little bit later.
Yeah, that's
it's
a godforsaken part of America out there, man. On Lake Erie. It's cold in the winter, bro. Beautiful in the summer, though.
Yeah,
sunsets are amazing.
Yeah.
We could give him a hard time though, and just tell him give him a hard time thinking he didn't want to try the sauce.
He's too scared. He's too scared to show. So I know that you've talked a little bit about upcoming sauces and or like what you're kind of workshopping. What's the biggest? You don't have to do details, but we like to ask, what are the plans for the future? Like what's the next big thing?
Well, let's see. The next big thing. That's interesting. Well, again, I've got a bunch of phone calls and interviews with different distributors around the country. So we're hoping to get some semi-national distribution on the big 3, which are the Double Dose, the regular Purple Haze, and the Dirty Blonde. Of course, I have to develop some new stuff. You're only as good as your last sauce, right? So we'll be working on some new variation. I told you about a coffee sauce. I'm working on a variation of piri piri. I've got a few other things I'm messing around with. And then with the dry stuff, it's been suggested to me that I make what they call simmer sauces out of them, which are pastes, not dry, so that you can just kind of throw a spoonful. So that's my next recipe development is to take my Moroccan, my jerk, and my Mexican, the perk, the coffee chili rub, and turn them into simmer sauces so that you can literally just put some chicken and vegetables in a pan with some chicken broth and throw a spoonful in there and get the proper flavor. That seems to be more popular than rubs in a lot of ways. I mean, my rubs are really popular regionally because everybody misses my food. Nationally, they're only okay. The hot sauces sell a lot better nationally. They're a much bigger draw. So I'm going to be working on some simmer sauces. And then who the hell else knows? I might be on Home Shopping Club. I got a call from Home Shopping Club to do an hour guest appearance. And I've got a friend named Aaron McCargo, who's an ex-Food Network guy, who said he basically makes more money in 4 Home Shopping Club appearances on his product than he does on anything else. We just got in, we're in Fuego Box right now.
Okay.
Subscription service was good. Yeah, they bought, they bought 1,100 bottles of Purple Haze double dose, which is in their subscription kit. So we're looking to do more of that. You know, it's evolving for me because again, I was working full time until June of 2020. So now I'm like, all right, this is a cool hobby. No, this is not a hobby. It's a cool little business. That's not a little business. Good medium business. Oh, we got, how big do you want to get? I mean, I'm still working with a small producer. We make when we make a batch of sauce, it yields me about 140 to 150 cases. I mean, if we go bigger, I'm going to have to find it if I can't keep working with the same producer. So we'll see. I'd like to roll it out pretty big, but just big enough that I can still be on top of it. Like, I don't want to not be a part of it. I like being a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing this year is I'm going to, because this little COVID spur is a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it should settle down. I want to look to do more of the big festivals, start going and doing festivals because they're fun and you meet people and you put cash in your pocket, but you also meet people. I did like 2 this year, but, I think that might be a fun thing for me to get the old 2006 Chevy van rolling and go trek out to some, Texas Hot Sauce Festival or something.
We're going to the Fiery Foods Festival in March this year. Well, as long as everything.
Right, is that the one in New York?
New Mexico.
Oh, right, the one in New Mexico. Yeah, Dave DeWitt, right?
Yep.
Shit.
Yep. Yeah. So we're gonna cause some chaos there.
That's cool.
We're gonna pull some shenanigans and then see what we can do. It'll be a fun time.
Yeah, my sauces are a little different. So everywhere I've shown them in big groups, people have been like, "Whoa, wait a minute," and they come back and they're like, "We want to talk about it," because they do stand out in a crowd a little bit, which is cool. I've had some conversations with my daughter who's in tech and marketing about coming up with like really slick package designs, and that's a possibility. My packaging has got a sense of humor and kind of, but it's still 5-ounce woozy bottles. But there's some of the sauces that have gone into different packaging have killed it, because it's look at Truff. I mean, Truff is in Walmart now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Anyway.
Well, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. I know it was a very enjoyable hour. I really got to enjoy the conversation that we had. Lost slug on the way, but that's all right. Turk,
I saw him disappear. I didn't know why, but I figured something was up.
He lives in the middle of nowhere, south of, like, in the woods, like deep woods.
Wow.
So they depend on they're going to be depending on Mr. Musk's satellite internet whenever it happens, because right now they still got like copper wires or whatever where they're from.
Oh wow. Yeah, you can get that upstate, not where I am. Unfortunately, it's normal. Well, it's cable, but we have cable. Yeah, thanks for having me, though. It's definitely great. Looking forward to seeing it on all the platforms and sharing it with all my friends, because I got a lot of people that like to join in on these things. Cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
So the last thing we always like to do is kind of just tell us where I'm stealing Turk's line, but tell us where everyone can find you, so we can
It's very easy. My name is Rick Orlando, R-I-C Orlando. There's no K. Orlando like Florida. So if you go to rickorlando.com, you find out about me. You find my store, the little tours I take people on, pop-ups I'm doing. I have a store locator that is usually pretty up to date. Find out if there's any stores near you that carry my stuff, but it also takes you to my shop. So just rickorlando.com. It's really easy, you know. And I decided to market my own name because somebody, when I first started marketing Richter Scale brand, I had so many distributors say to me, Rick, what's Richter Scale? We know who you are. I'm like, all right. So kind of morphed into it. And you know, it's funny, very few modern sauces are named after the producers. The older ones, just like Melinda's and Marie Sharp's and so many of them, Blair's, you know. But suddenly, in the last 7 or 8 years, most of the sauces are not named after the producers. So I said, fuck it, do it. You know, people know who I am. Some do, some don't. But it works. At least I won't forget the name of my company.
That's true. That's true. At least you hopefully won't misspell it or anything like that. And autocorrect shouldn't.
I probably misspelled it once or twice. You know. I like to do a lot of my own graphics, so you know I've always done that work, that end of it for the restaurant, even for my bands, even before Photoshop. We used to do it with like Letraset and X-Acto knives, and designed our record albums and stuff. And then I learned Photoshop and learned Quark and Adobe and learned all this stuff. So I have fun doing it. You know, another hobby, one of too many hobbies.
Absolutely. Well, hey, now that you've got some time, it's good to fill it with something. So.
Yeah, time, right? I'm so slammed. I'm so slammed.
What's that?
Oh my God, I'm so freaking busy. It's crazy, but it's cool. You know, I got a whole stack of papers there.
Yeah, we appreciate you spending some time with us. For Turk and Slug, who's disappeared, I'm Hot Sauce Guide, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking Heat. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information, visit talkingheat.com.